Hi, and welcome to your first weekly session of Android Developer Nano Degree program. I'm Ramiz Raja. I will be guiding you through this journey of yours in becoming a successful Android developer. First, I would like to acknowledge that this is not an easy program, and there will be sometimes hurdles, and you will feel like you cannot find a way out. And it happens sometimes, it happens to everyone. But if you truly believe in yourself, that you should, and if you are hardworking and committed, know that I will be here for you. I will be helping you in this term of your program to help you succeed. So, good luck. The goal of this weekly session is to assess what you did in last week and what you are going to do in the next week, and to set goals for the next week, and also discuss some concepts and ideas that you are feeling hard to grasp on. So this will be every week and I will be guiding you in that. Today we'll be discussing activity briefly to give you a general idea of what it is and its importance in the Android development stack. But before we go to activity, let's first discuss what is an Android application. After all, activity is part of an Android application. So what is an Android application? From user perspective, it is simply a collection of connected components that user can interact with. So what are the components, you may ask? So Android has four fundamental components. The first one is activity, the second one is service, the third one is broadcast receiver, the fourth one is content provider. And we will be discussing each of these at some point in the future, but today we will be discussing activity. So an activity is basically a window. So for example, you launch a Gmail app. The first thing that you see is a window with your emails listed in cells. So this window that you're seeing is an activity, and it has information that you can interact with or click on or notify you that there is a new email app. You can delete emails. So all of this interaction that you're doing it with an activity. So this whole window that you are interacting with is called an activity. It receives system events, touch events, and you can interact with it. So basically it is a single focus window that user can interact with, and that is also responsible for receiving system events. You can launch multiple activities by pressing, for example, compose button. So for example, when you press compose button in Gmail app, you're basically launching a new activity. So a new screen appears, which is a new window, which is again a new activity. So you can launch multiple activities. And in simple terms, you can also say that from a user perspective, an Android application is basically a sequence of activities stacked on top of each other. And stack is actually the structure that is used by the system to maintain the state of the activities. Each activity is put on top of each other. For example, this is an activity that you are interacting with, and when you, for example, press compose button on Gmail, what happens next? New activity is launched, its state is created, and it is put on top of the first one. You can interact with this top activity, and when you're done, you press back button and system simply destroys it, and the next activity is brought to front. So now you start interacting with this activity, and when you press back button again, this activity is also destroyed and you're back to your launcher. Speaking of launcher, you may ask, how does the launcher know that which activity to launch? So we actually declared this information in the manifest. Each of the components I mentioned have to be declared in the manifest file for the system to know that this application has these components, and you also provide when to launch which component. So to launch an activity from a launcher, you specify that activity as a launcher in the manifest file. That's how the system knows. The next question is interesting and very obvious, is that how do you draw the UI? So if an activity is a window, how to put buttons, how to put labels like Gmail or a logo, Gmail logo. So Android has actually a UI toolkit that you use to draw inside the window of activity. Android uses XML file to define layout and views. So each activity has a corresponding XML file. It's called a layout file. It's also in your layout folder in your Android Studio project. In this layout file, you declare what UIs components are you're using. So this layout file actually contains information, for example, what views are using, text views, buttons, what is their order, what each UI component has the color. For example, you can say that text view has a font size of 18 dp or sp, sorry, and it is bold, the text color is blue. So all this information is inside that layout file. Then you can say that after, below the text button, there is text view, there is a button. When user clicks that button, I should be notified. So this information, all this information is inside that layout file. You set that layout file to the activity window by calling the set content view. That's how you attach the UI information to the activity window. Next, there are two things that are important when we talk about UI: the view and the view groups. So what is a view? A view is simply a single dedicated thing. So for example, you can say that text view and button, these are single purpose things. But then what is a view group? View group by its name is a group of views. So sometimes you want to group views in a specific order, like in a line or in a grid form. So this is how you achieve this functionality is achieved by view groups or layout managers. Layout managers are basically view groups. So Android has multiple layout managers, but the most frequently used are relative layouts, linear layouts, and constraint layouts. So we will be discussing each of these in details to see how we can use them and what is the purpose of each, what are the drawbacks and efficiency of each, and when to use each of these. So before I proceed, I would like to ask you guys if you have any question, because I quickly went over the concept. So let's see if you guys have any questions. So let's move on.